Busch Gardens Williamsburg is one of the most prominent theme parks in the United States, with its super impressive collection of roller coasters and just its beautiful nature. This park is probably my favorite one outside of Epic Universe. With the park's current lineup being already pretty fantastic, it's going to get a lot better in the future. We have a lot of clues as to what they could be planning. So let's dive in. As you may recall, Busch Gardens Tampa and SeaWorld Orlando sent out surveys regarding potential ride additions that may come to the park within a couple years. They sent these surveys out in order to get some guest perspective and feedback on these type of attractions. In other words, they are testing the waters to see how well a potential ride would be received if they would add it. And sure enough, it looks like the same thing has happened with Busch Gardens Williamsburg. But theirs is a little bit different. They did send out a survey with 7 different attractions for customers to submit feedback on. But the thing about these attractions are, I think we're going to be getting a lot of them within the next couple of years. I think we're going to at least see 5 out of the 7 attractions come within the next 12 years that the park is operational. So let's get started. Number 1 on this survey, we're going to start from the most boring option. This is going to be a new animal exhibit. What they have in the AI generated photo, at least it looks like AI generated, would be an otter exhibit. Now, Busch Gardens wants to know if the current clientele is interested in animal exhibits. If they are, they're going to move forward with them over the next couple of years. Now, animal exhibits are a lot cheaper than attractions. I mean, you do have to pay for the food for the animals and the enclosure and the electricity in the enclosure and all that kind of boring stuff, but it's significantly less than a giant thrill machine. So if they gauge that the public wants to see this in any way whatsoever, this is almost a definite yes for the next 10 to 12 years. So yes, we're going to be seeing a new animal exhibit come eventually. There's almost no doubt in my mind. Next up, we have some type of flat ride that is going to take the place of Da Vinci's Cradle or the Flying Machine. This area of the park was so picturesque when all 3 of those rides were operational. The Da Vinci's Gardens was just amazing. However, with 2 of the main attractions gone, you just have the battering ram, and there desperately needs to be some more kinetic energy in this spot. But without a doubt, this is the easiest and most likely option for what I believe next year is going to bring. I think next year we're going to see a replacement for Da Vinci's Cradle or the Flying Machine. Now, what options could they choose here? Well, there are a lot of pretty awesome looking flat rides. The easiest and most kind of boring option would be a Zamperla Nebula to replace one of the spots. A swinging pendulum ride would also be pretty cool to see here, and they've done a lot of those as well. Zamperla is a very reliable company that SeaWorld Entertainment already works with. So I would bet a lot of money that a flat ride is coming to the park either next year or the year after, so this one is a yes as well. Next up is an antique car ride. This would be perfect at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and they've even had one in the past. We know they've submitted documents for a potential attraction that looks very similar, at least from an aerial view, to an antiques car ride. So I think this is very likely for either next year or the year after that. Like I mentioned, I think we're either going to be getting a flat ride next year and then a car ride after, or they'll be swapped. Next up, we have this dark ride concept. Would Busch Gardens add a dark ride? We know that a dark ride is desperately needed for Busch Gardens Tampa, but Williamsburg does have at least a little bit more indoor attractions. They have their, of course, indoor shows, and they have Dark Coaster, which is a fully indoor coaster, and Verbolten, which is a partly indoor coaster. However, a dark ride would be perfect at this park as well. They desperately need it. But just because they need a dark ride, it doesn't mean they're going to get one. I see this one as the most unrealistic contender here. It is very hard to do a dark ride if you're not Universal or Disney and have a giant budget to make the dark ride spectacular. We've seen it done in the past with parks like Lost Island, and they work out pretty nicely, but it's a huge risk for parks to take. I don't see this option as definitely happening. I think it could, but not unless they receive a lot of demand for this. But that doesn't mean they can't get an indoor attraction, because the next one is a flying theater. Busch Gardens has a huge long history with flying theaters. They've started out with Corkscrew Hill, which was like a motion simulator ride, so while technically not a flying theater, the next iteration of it, Europe in the Air, looked to be Busch Gardens' version of Soarin'. It was a pretty nostalgic ride, in fact, both of them were. After that, both of those closed, and the whole building was transformed to the Battle for Ire. This thing didn't last at all, and it closed only a few years after opening. So they have that building, which housed 3 different motion simulator attractions. Could they make it a 4th? Well, I say yes. They desperately need a motion simulator for the park. It gets hot, and while they do have some indoor attractions, those 2 of them are coasters. I think they needed something that the whole family can do, and having a ride like Soarin' would be fantastic. And there's a lot of evidence for this. We know that SeaWorld Orlando just added their version by Mock Rides, and while it's not getting the best reception, I definitely think it would be a fantastic hit here. So this gets another Coaster Josh stamp of approval. I'm saying yes within the next decade. Now we are at the largest 2 attractions on this survey. And the thing about these is I think they're most likely going to be replacements for existing rides. Let me explain. Number 1, we have some type of water coaster attraction. Now, because this is AI generated, it doesn't really tell me a model. But looking from it and looking from the relationship with Mock Rides, I think Mock would be the most likely option here. Could Busch Gardens add a water coaster? Well, you may be thinking to yourself, they already have Escape from Pompeii, and while that's not a water coaster, that's a boat attraction with a pretty big drop. They also have Roman Rapids, which is completely hidden in the park. It doesn't get the love that it deserves, so I cannot see this thing lasting more than 10 years at the park. So they're going to need to replace some type of water attraction eventually, and a water coaster is a good option for this. If they don't add a water coaster, an updated Rapids ride would be a good addition to the park as well, something like Mystic River Falls or Infinity Falls. So I say yes, within the next decade we will see a new water attraction come to the park. Lastly, we have our show-stopping roller coaster, a vertical launch coaster. At least that's what SeaWorld Entertainment is calling it in their surveys. They offered a similar thing to SeaWorld Orlando people who took the survey as well. But this to me looks like a mock striker coaster. In fact, a lot of these attractions are mock attractions. In fact, almost all of them on this list besides the otters are something that mock rides can do. But we'll save that for later. Looking at the colors, it looks like this attraction mimics the Apollo's Chariot colors, with the only exception being Apollo's Chariot has more of a yellow and this is more of an orange. Could they be looking super far down the road? I'm talking 10 years in advance, talking about Apollo's Chariot's overall replacement when it eventually bites the dust. It is possible. Definitely, I want to say it's possible. But I don't think it's super likely. Apollo's Chariot is a fan favorite. If it's getting old and decrepit, I would see them retracking the ride rather than tearing it down and replacing it. If we look at another ride in the park, like Alpengeist, I see it much more likely that they would tear down the ride completely and give that a brand new shiny replacement. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Josh, another launch coaster? We've had so many launch coasters at this park. And my answer to that would be, well, launch coasters are awesome, stop complaining. No, in all seriousness, launch coasters have definitely grown in popularity and they are super fun. I would personally rather ride a launch coaster than a chain lift coaster any day, with the exception of like an RMC or a Giga coaster. So I think launch coasters are going to be the way to go in the industry for the next couple of years. Now, just because they're displaying a mock striker coaster doesn't mean that's what they're actually going to get. I could see a Mock Rides Extreme Spinner working perfectly at this park, and Tampa already has a Mock Ride Spinner. So that's what I think is also a likely option that it's getting overlooked here. Now, what is so special about this survey compared to the other ones? Well, one, the number of attractions. They are looking ahead into the future, looking at all of the logical options. We know they are going to have to replace Da Vinci's Cradle and the Flying Machine, and they're doing that. We know they're going to have to look ahead at their water attractions, which are getting older, and they're going to have to replace that. They have this giant empty building that used to house Europe in the Air, and they're looking at that. Each one of these options are extremely logical. The park is definitely making some good decisions here. Now, is there a lot the survey did not discuss? Yes. Are these attractions going to be identical to the ones in the photo? No, but these at least give the general idea. I believe the survey paints an accurate picture of the next 10 years at the park. Now, what are we going to see over the next 10 years? Well, here's my prediction. Number 1, Da Vinci's Cradle and Flying Machine replacement. Number 2, some type of water attraction coming to the park. Number 3, a flying theater or dark ride concept. Number 4, a thrill coaster. And number 5, antique cars. Now, do I think there'll be other stuff there? Probably. And do I think I'm going to be 100% accurate? Probably not. I mean, I do have some credibility with predicting rides like Dark Coaster. I thought they were going to put a coaster in there. And then the Wing Coaster at King's Dominion. And, I have a decent track record with this. But I see this as being all logical options. I don't think the next 10 years is going to be filled with record-breaking attractions. I don't think we're going to see that 355-foot Giga Coaster spike thing. I don't think it's happening. Instead, I think the park is going to be focused on improving the overall guest experience, making their parks more of a resort rather than just a theme park or an amusement park. Man, that was a long video. If you are still here, props to you. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And if you've stuck around for the entire thing, go buy yourself a cookie. This is the Kosher Josh, signing out.